let's talk about the consonant chart today. This chart is going to show you how all the consonants are related, but a little bit different from each other. Let's start by looking up here in the upper left-hand corner, we have airflow. So there's generally two types of airflow. We either have stops or continuants. A stop is where we gather up the air and we let all the air out at once. So that happens on pa, ba, ta, da, cha, ja, ka, ga. So once I say pa, there's a lot of sound and then it's gone. So with P, I let my two lips come together, pa. When the two lips come together, they stop the air and then they let the air out. That's the definition of a stop. Now for a continuant, the air flows out of the mouth throughout the sound. For instance, we have the F sound. The air keeps coming out of my mouth. I'm not stopping and releasing it. So those are the two different types of consonants. Now this next column up here says voice. And there's two types of voices. There's either voiceless, VL, or voiced, VD. Voiceless means that your vocal cords are not vibrating. For instance, in P, P. In P, we could whisper it. P, P, pit, pit. So that means that the vocal cords are not being engaged because we can whisper it. But in B, it's voiced, and you're going to let your vocal cords vibrate, like bits, ba, ba. You can't really whisper that because the vocal cords are involved. So we have p and ba. Now I wrote tense and relaxed because this is very important for creating the difference between them. When I do P or any of these tense stops, you need to make the contact between your articulator and the other part of your mouth very firm or tense. So the P will have the lips firmly pressed together, P. But the B, or the voiced consonants, will have more relaxed contact. So the lips will not be pressed together as firmly, ba. They'll be more gently pressed together. Let's move across this row, and we saw that the P and B were made with two lips. Those are my places of articulation. Now, if I move across and I go to tongue, tip, and tooth ridge, that means I'm going to use the tip of my tongue and the top of my mouth right behind my teeth. So it will look like this. And the tongue will touch the tooth ridge and then release to let the sound out. Now, when I do the T, I'm going to have firm contact between my tongue and the tooth ridge, like I'm pressing them together a bit. Ta. And for D, I want it to be more relaxed, so I'm pressing more gently. Da. When you do T, more air comes out. Ta. Next, let's look at the tongue blade and the hard palate. So that's going to make the CH and the J stops. So instead of using the tip of my tongue, I'm going to use the middle of my tongue. I'm going to press them together, and it's not going to be the tooth ridge, but behind the tooth ridge, it's the hard palate, more the middle of the top of my mouth. And the middle of my tongue a little toward the front, but not the tip. So I press these together, and I'm trying to show that my tongue tip is not touching anything. It's actually in the middle of the mouth. So we're going to say cha and ja. Remember, you press more firmly for the CH than for the J. Cha, ja. Let's move to the next one. We have K and G. That's going to use the back of the tongue and the soft palate. So on my hands, it looks like the back of the tongue and the back of the top of the mouth, or the soft palate. And I press them together firmly and release to make K, ka. And it might help if you smile. It's easier to access the back of your mouth if you smile, ka. And then less pressure for ga. Let's move on to the continuants. So we'll start with F. Notice that F is in a column called lip and teeth. So I'm going to put my top teeth on my bottom lip very gently. I'm not going to bite, and I'm not going to do this. So I don't put the teeth on the outside of the lip. I keep it inside because I don't want to get lipstick on my teeth. I'm going to blow, and that air comes out with a hissing sound. It continues out of my mouth. That's why we call this a continuant. Now the voiced counterpart is the V, where I need to engage my vocal cords. So we have fine and vine. Next, we have tongue tip and teeth, which makes the TH sounds. For this, the tip of my tongue is going to come very close to my teeth, but it doesn't actually touch my teeth. It might look like I'm touching my teeth, but I'm as close to my teeth as possible without actually touching. The air has to be able to come out, and it comes out between the tongue and the teeth. There's not a lot of room for the air to come out, so we get this hissing noise. A lot of friction is created. That's why I've written friction right here. All of these sounds in these two rows have a lot of friction. Something is obstructing the air from coming out, but it's still letting the air come out. Now, there's a voiceless TH and a voiced TH. So for the voiced TH, it's the same thing. Your tongue gets close to your teeth, but you're going to engage and vibrate those vocal cords, and it will sound like a buzz. So we have think and van. Okay, next we have the S and Z, which are using the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. Notice these are in the same column as T and D. That means they're related. They both use the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. However, with T and D, the tongue tip touch the tooth ridge. For S and Z, it comes really close to the tooth ridge, but it doesn't actually touch. The air comes through the very small passageway between the tip of the tongue and the tooth ridge. And for the voiceless one, we have S. And for the voiced one, we have Z. Remember, the tongue comes very close to the top of the mouth, and the air is passing right over the tongue. It's going to feel like your tongue is being tickled. Your tongue tip is actually going to vibrate on this Z. Zzz. Okay, next we have the tongue blade and the hard palate, which make the SH and ZH sounds. Notice they're in the same column as CH and J. So while the CH and J were made with this part of the tongue touching the middle of the top of the mouth, we're going to do the same thing with SH and ZH, but it doesn't quite touch. It comes really close, but doesn't touch. My tongue tip is down. The tongue tip is in the middle of the mouth, not near anything. The air is going to come through that very narrow passageway. And it really helps if you round your lips. It even helps if you round your lips on the CH and the J. So I go like this. Cha, chip, jip, ship. Vision, vision. We don't have ZH at the beginning of words in English, so I'm using the word vision, and I round my lips in the middle of the word. Vision. That's using the vocal cords. Zh. And again, the SH, shh, like you're telling somebody to be quiet. Round your lips. Shh. Finally, in this row, we have the throat making the H sound. Ha, ha. This is voiceless, and it's coming out of your throat. You are going to tense the vocal cords in your throat, but we're not actually vibrating them. Ha, hot. Okay, let's go to the next row. So also a continuant are the glides, W, R, and Y. Now they move, they don't stay in one place, and the air continues or flows out of the mouth. So for the W, you're going to use the two lips, just like you did for P and B, but this time your lips don't touch, but they do come very close together. Let's look. Wah. So the lips get very round and they protrude away from your teeth. Very important that your lips are nowhere near your teeth. Wah. So we have the word wat. Next, we go all the way over to the R. And the R is under tongue, tip, and tooth ridge, but it doesn't really have to be there. So some Americans do say the R by flipping their tongue up, but not touching the top. Rot. But a lot of Americans, including me, we pull our tongue backward. So it's not really about the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. I just pull my tongue back to make the R. Rot. Now for the Y, you use the tongue blade and the hard palate. It is under the J, and some people do confuse the Y and the J. But remember, the J actually touches the top, and the Y doesn't. So you have jip, ship, and E, a little lower than SH, sh, E, and pull back a little bit will be the Y, yacht. Now let's look at the lateral. This is also a continuant, and we're going to use the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. But it's not exactly like T or D or S or Z, okay? So let's discuss how the L is different from the T or the D. So I do use the tip of my tongue for the L, just like I do for D, da, la. But the shape of my tongue is gonna change. So I'm gonna show it to you this way. If this is ta, where I have one finger touching the top, then this is la, where I make 3 fingers touching the top. I'm showing that I'm making my tongue wider. So for the L, you make your tongue wider, but you still touch the top so that the air can go around your tongue. That's what a lateral means, la. So we have the word lot. Now let's look at the very last row, the nasals. So we have M, which again uses 2 lips, and it's going to put 2 lips together just like P or B. So we have bit and we have mice. What's the difference between ba and ma? This time, say these are both lips. I put these lips together, but now I want to press down with the top of my mouth to make the nasal passage bigger so that the air can go out my nose. So when I did the B, I didn't press down here, ba, ba. But with the M, press down, make your nose bigger. We move along to tongue, tip, and tooth ridge, making the N. Wow, there's a lot of sounds that are in this column, so we need to be careful not to confuse them. So the N is also just like the D and the L in that the tongue tip touches the top. But remember, the difference is that now you're going to press down the top of your mouth, press your palate down so that the nasal passage will be bigger. And all that air is going to be in the nose. So when I say nice, I hear that N in my nose. And if I went like this, dice, dice, it's really hard to hear the N because all the air is in my nose. Okay, one last consonant. We have the NG. And the NG is in the same column as K and G. So it's made with the back of the tongue, just like a G. But this time, of course, you press your top of your mouth down to make your nose bigger. And we only have this in the middle or end of a word. So ring. Let's review. We have pits and bits. These are stops that use 2 lips. We have tip and dip. The T and the D are stops that use the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. We have CH and J, chip and jip, tongue blade and hard palate. We have K and G, kill and gill, which is using the back of the tongue, and the soft palate, which is the back of the top of the mouth. Then we have a lot of continuants where the air keeps going through your mouth. F and V, fine, vine. They use the top teeth and the bottom lip. Then we have F and V, the 2 different THs. They use the tongue tip getting very close to the teeth, but the air continues out your mouth. Then we have S and Z, as in sip and zip. They use the tongue tip and the tooth ridge. Then we have ship and vision, or SH and ZH. They use the middle of the tongue and the middle of the top of the mouth, tongue blade and hard palate. And last in this row, we have H, which comes out of the throat, and it's voiceless. The difference between H and a vowel is that all the vowels are voiced. So if I say ah, I'm vibrating my vocal cords. But when I let this air come out of my throat without vibrating, I get an H. Next, we have W. Use your two lips, woo, and let the air continue. We have R, where I pull my tongue backward, rot. And we have Y, yacht, where I use the tongue blade and the hard palate. And we have lot, where I use the front of my tongue, but I use a broadened tip to the front of my tongue, and the air goes around the tongue. And then we have the nasals, M, which uses two lips, and the air comes out the nose. N, which uses the tongue and tooth ridge. Air comes out the nose. Nice. And finally, NG, from ring, which uses the back of the tongue and the soft palate. Okay, I hope this helps you understand the consonant sounds.